Hey y'all, it's me. And yeah, it's been a while since my last video. I think it's been about, let me see. 7 months? Damn, sorry about that. However, some things have happened these last few months. For starters, I started an internship for a company. It was pretty stressful at times, but on the bright side, I saved up enough money to buy myself a fancy new computer and get a better mic for myself. So no more sounding like I was inside of a tin can for me. But you guys aren't here to see what's up with me, you guys are here to see what kind of game I've been working on. For the last few months, I've been struggling to work on a game. I was working on an RPG at one point, but then I wanted to work on a roguelike game, and at one point I tried to revive my other game, but with better code. But I dropped all of them. Did I not like them? No, that wasn't the issue. In fact, I liked the RPG game a lot, and it was the one I was working on for the longest time. But the problem lied in the fact that these games were going to take forever to develop and finish. And I get it, when you decide to make a game, that's kind of the stuff you're signing up for. But I really wanted to experience the feeling of actually releasing a project in the near future. And to do that, I would need to make a game that's small in scope, wouldn't require many or any sort of systems at all. And I also, at the same time, needed to make a simple game, but with gimmicks that would make it stand out from the crowd. I needed a game that was unique and has never been done before. So I decided to make a roguelike. Nah, I'm just playing. I was gonna make a 3D platformer. At the time of this decision, I was playing a lot of Mega Man, and his games have always stood the test of time and are generally fun. So I wondered, what if I made a Mega Man-like game, but in 3D? Mega Man himself has never really made the jump to 3D. Sure, there was Mega Man Legends, but that plays nothing like a regular Mega Man game. And there was also Mega Man X7, but that game sucks, so it doesn't count. So, with the idea finally in place, it was time for me to get to work. And before we go on with the rest of the video, you should like and subscribe to keep up with any updates on this game. First things first, I got started with setting everything up in 3D, which isn't that simple in a 2D game engine like Game Maker, but this isn't my first time attempting something like this. I've made a 3D game in the past for a game jam, and I've made an RPG game that uses the same code to look 3D too. So I'll just copy that, paste it onto my new project, and there we go. That was easy. I have a character running and jumping around in a 3D playground, add platforms you can jump on, and springs you can bounce on. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If I'm going to be making a 3D game, why not do all this on a 3D game engine like Godot or Unity? And the answer is really simple. Change scares me. Moving on. I decided I want to get enemies into the game, so that's what I started working on. I made the basic enemies I had in every game I've ever made. I have a slime enemy that splits into more slimes when you attack it, a jumping enemy that shoots bullets at you, I have an enemy that charges at you like a bull, I've made an enemy that you can only hit when they're green. Right now, I feel like these 4 were enough. I wasn't quite happy with the way the game looked at the moment, and how enemies and the player were just blobs. So I decided that now would be a good time to make some art, starting with the enemies. I was working with a bigger room size, so that this time around I can make bigger sprites. The reason for this is that I've always wanted to make a game that looked like it had hand-drawn characters and environments, but I could never get far in doing so since I was never really good at digital art. But for the last few months, I've been practicing on that, and I think I've come a long way, and I think the end results look really good. Now it was time for the player to get done. But that took 3 whole days to get done. But why? Was it work? Was the design so incredibly detailed that it took so long to get done? No, it wasn't any of that. I just want to make sure I had a player whose moveset was tied to their appearance, like how Sonic is able to curl into a spiky ball because he's a hedgehog, and how Yoshi could extend his tongue because he's a reptile chameleon thing, and how Bubsy can glide in the air because he's a bobcat. So after thinking about it for a day or two, I decided on the most interesting, most deadliest thing you can imagine to be our player character. So you would play as this robot whose purpose was to clean up all the trash polluting the environment. And I figured that they could have a cannon arm just like Mega Man did. But their arm would be a vacuum cleaner that you'd use to suck up the garbage, and you would also have a broom to be able to attack enemies too. And so, with an idea finally in place, I designed the character, put them in the game, and here's how the game looks like now with all these new sprites. And I've gotta say, I'm quite happy with the way this game looks, especially with the art style that I chose. Now with the design out of the way, it was time to start working on the attacks. And I started with the melee weapon. It would be a simple attack with a broom that can knock back enemies. Next was their vacuum arm. I figured that they could use that to clean up the sludge and trash that would be all over the place. So I made the sludge object and the trash object that would shrink in size and disappear when being encountered by the almighty Suck! And while I was at it, I decided to add this game's main gimmick. And the plan was this: the sludge you suck up could become this game's currency that will let you buy things from shops. And because you really have no way of attacking enemies from a distance, the garbage you suck up could become a certain type of ammo for you to use. Like a crumpled paper ball could turn into a standard projectile, a tennis ball could turn into a bouncing projectile, and things like gears could become ammo that orbits you. And I felt this would be a great gimmick for the games because having something like this can encourage the player to go out of their way and look for garbage to clean up, since this is the only way to get any ammo. And because I plan to have something like the Robot Masters down the line, where you could gain their abilities after defeating them, I think it'd be amazing if the boss powers you equip could enhance or change up the ammo properties, thus giving you many different ways to experiment with how your abilities and ammos interact with each other. So far the player can hurt the enemy, but the enemy can't really hurt the player, so we need to change that. And so I made it so that coming in contact with an enemy will temporarily disable you and knock you back a bit. And using a shader, I made it so that you flash red whenever you get hit. The next thing to add after that was death, and at the same time lives. If you die, a little scene will play where the character spins around for a bit and falls down. The screen will then reveal the player's current life count before bringing them back to life. I then decided to get checkpoints out of the way and put them in. Right now they're represented by these big buttons, and if the player dies, they'll be transported to the last checkpoint. And if the player runs out of lives completely, they'll be taken to the game over screen with the option to retry the stage or give up and go back to the stage select screen. The last thing I worked on was controller input. And the first thing I did was download this Game Maker plugin called Input. But for some reason, I couldn't get it to work. And the problem comes from the fact that, let's say I'm holding down a shoot button and I start moving, sometimes the game would not register that the shoot button is being held down. And it would flip-flop between it being held down and it not being held down, even though I was obviously holding it down the entire time. And I still don't understand why it's happening. So if anybody who really understands Input, please let me know where I went wrong, because I really want to try it out considering I've heard a lot of good things about it. But that's where we'll stop for now. Of course I plan to add way more stuff, and now that I'm finally done with my internship, I have more time to work on this game. I really want to go back to making more devlogs. With college starting up soon, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the time to make them. Also, going back to college means I want to have access to my better computer, which means my audio will probably sound crappy again. However, by the next time I do have a devlog done, I should have a playable demo out for you all to try. And if I can't get a devlog out, I've made an Instagram account that I plan to update with game progress, art, and other stuff I've been working on. I'll leave a link down to that in the description below. But on that note, make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with any updates with the game, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.